Welcome to Margin of Thought, where we make space for the questions that matter. I'm your host, Priten, and together we'll explore questions that help us preserve what matters while navigating what's coming. Today I'm joined by Laura, an 18-year-old student in Germany whose education has already taken her across very different worlds. Laura has seen two distinct versions of schools up close. One gave her warmth, belonging, and a strong culture around extracurricular life. The other gave her greater academic rigor. At the same time, neither fully captures the kind of learning she believes students now need. In this conversation, Laura reflects on what happens when ambitious students begin to find their most meaningful learning outside the classroom. We also talk about the differences between German and American schools, the role technology plays in attention and distraction, the limits of rigid schedules and standardized pathways, and why she is drawn to project-based learning as a more future-ready model. Let's begin.
Hi, I'm Laura, and I'm 18, and I'm a high school student in Germany. And I'm in 12th grade right now. And last year, I did an exchange year in the US. And that's also how I came across the Knowledge Society. And this year, I'm an innovator at the Knowledge Society, which is a first year program. And TKS is a global innovation program for teenagers who are very curious and ambitious and want to do projects within an area that they're excited about and foster like future skills and kind of prepare for oh my gosh, can I start over again?
Oh yeah, also totally can start over again. You can also start just like that last sentence again, and we can always
Okay.
edit from there as well. So whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay, I would actually like to start from the top. Okay. Yeah. Hi, I'm Laura and I'm 18. I'm a high school student in Germany. And right now I'm in 12th grade. And last year I did an exchange year in the US. So I went to an American high school too. And this year I'm part of the Knowledge Society. So that is outside of regular school. And it's a global innovation program for teenagers who are curious and ambitious and who want to explore more about the world and start building projects. And so within TKS, we are exposed to new technologies, emerging technologies. We're exposed to different mindsets, and we have our mentors on our sides who are always there to support us and give advice. And then throughout the year, so TKS is 10 months long. So the first year, we have different opportunities and challenges and hackathons coming up. So, for example, this January and then also at the beginning of February, we had the chance to work with Lovable, which is the fastest growing software company ever. And they gave us students a problem, and we got to work on that problem with the company. So that was definitely really exciting. And yeah, TKS is really this amazing community of very curious and ambitious students who just want to have more, who want to learn more, and who want to actually build something and have an impact. So yeah, the community definitely is the best part.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll want to hear more about the Knowledge Society, but let's start with your experience last year in the States. So, can you tell us a little bit about where in the States you were, what kind of school it was, and then maybe just generally what you thought about the experience as a whole?
Yeah, definitely. So I lived in Nebraska for a year. A lot of people think that's pretty random and um well, yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. So I really enjoyed being there. And I would say going to the high school was probably one of the best experiences. So literally every single day, I was really looking forward um, to going to school. I know that sounds kind of odd. And there I went to a public school, and it actually was the biggest in Nebraska. So we were, I think, about probably like over 2,000 students. And my graduating class, I think then we were about 600 or 700. And overall, I would say yes, of course, it is similar to my German school experience, just the way. the classroom and all of that is set up and the curriculum. But overall, there still are quite big differences. Just so one example is just the atmosphere. Like you enter the school and it's so welcoming. And so also when you enter a classroom, it's like very personalized, right? One teacher has their own classroom, so they have like pictures and posters, and it's kind of more comfortable and more welcoming. Whereas here in my German school, it's like everything's like very formal, and you have like everything painted white. Um, so yeah, I would say that was one difference, and that really affects how you learn and the way you feel at school. And then also, obviously, the focus in my American high school was more on extracurriculars and on developing like soft skills, like also following your hobbies and exploring your passions. And that's one thing that I really enjoyed because, yes, academics are important, but I think fostering those passions and also exploring what you actually like and what you don't like and what people you can cooperate, that's also really important. And yeah, I would say there the American high school definitely supported that.
Very interesting. I'm actually surprised. I will say that, like, for most folks working in American education, um, they would not have expected you to have that much of a more positive experience. And it's nice to hear what kinds of things stood out to you in terms of like
Mhm.
positives of the American education system, or at least comparing like your particular school to the particular school that you were at in the States. Tell me a little bit about the extracurriculars. That's something I haven't necessarily heard before in terms of a comparison. So, what is the culture around extracurriculars in German schools, in contrast to the American school you were at?
Yeah. So of course every school is different, and I would say the school that I go to is pretty well developed in a sense that we have a lot of opportunities. Um, I would say so there are a couple differences how extracurriculars are approached here in Germany. So I would say the biggest is that if you have a hobby, you don't do that at school. You go to out like clubs outside of school. So a lot of people play soccer, boys especially. So that's always outside of school. And if you, yeah, basically whatever hobby you have, you do that outside of school after school. But that being said, schools still have these programs and kind of extracurriculars, but they're not as much tied to the school identity. So if you're at school and if you're in like the robotics club or a volleyball club, um, that's not that as much part of your identity. Um, it's just like, yeah, you do it, but it's not like, oh yeah, you do dance and so now you're super popular. Like that's not the case.
Right.
Um,
Uh,
yeah, so
yeah.
again, we do have like these different offers, and I would say there's quite a big of a variety, but it's not as developed and ingrained in the school culture.
That's super interesting. The idea of like how much it shapes a student's identity is that makes sense. It is usually a huge part of campus identity, especially in high school for students, is are centered around their extracurriculars. Tell me about the academic rigor. So, did you find a difference in the like the extracurriculars? You found a little bit more ingrained in the school culture. Did you find a difference in the academic rigor of the two schools?
Mm, yes. Yes, definitely. So as far as academics are concerned, I would say that here in Germany, it's harder. Again, it depends on what class you do. But if I just compare the grade levels, then I would say, like, what I experience often is that the things that seniors in the US did were things that we did in like 10th grade or ninth grade. So I would just say that, yeah, here we just do different things at different times. So I would say the level was one difference. And then also in the US, like there are a lot of different subjects, not just like math and English and biology, but you have also like speech and health and um, finance and all of that. So I really like that variety. And then you can also choose the classes. Whereas in Germany, you do. like everyone does the same class.
Yeah, very fascinating. You honestly are giving me a different perspective on the American education system, from the outside, at an outside student perspective,
Mhm. Yeah.
and that's actually very helpful. Um, Tell me a little bit about. Obviously, a lot of my work right now is focused on education technology, so I'm very curious about what role technology played during your time in Nebraska, and then a little bit about like what it looks like in Germany for you.
Yeah. So in Nebraska, and I was really surprised about that. So when I came to school, they gave me a Chromebook, and everyone at the school has a Chromebook. And then I also realized that that's kind of common in the US, that schools give out Chromebooks and that we use it for class and all of that. So that was one big surprise that you actually get the device from the school and that it's like used very commonly. So I was kind of like, nice, now I have a laptop. That's super cool. Um, and it yeah, it was used in most classes, so I would say the Chromebook was, like, the biggest technological thing beside, obviously, like, whiteboards and all of that. Um, and we had, like, all the assignments in Google Classroom, so there were basically no papers or anything like that. Sometimes we did, like, presentations on paper, but, yeah, that wasn't very, yeah, it didn't happen very often. About the Chromebooks, I would say yes, it was pretty cool because you could do like research and all that very easily. And yeah, it's just, the way laptops work, it's like more efficient and you have everything comprised and don't have like a folder there and then a folder over there for like every other subject. But it also distracted students a lot. And I noticed that myself too, obviously. But yeah, overall, when I looked into the classroom, like everyone was just on their Chromebooks and just playing games or doing some other stuff. So, yeah, I kind of missed that human connection. Even if students are bored, they're bored collectively, and not just like staring at the Chromebook. So that was kind of unfortunate.
And then tell me a little bit about what does that how does that compare to what school looks like for you in Germany?
Yeah, I can't say if it's better here necessarily. So before 10th grade, around that time, we all wrote on paper. So that was very normal. But now, and I think even in the low grades, more and more people use iPads and tablets for writing. So in year 12, so like senior, juniors, I would say like 80% of the class uses iPads for writing. And it's very similar to what I had just said about Chromebooks. Like, yes, they definitely have their advantages, but you also get distracted far more easily. And for me, it's kind of nice to use an iPad because since I'm very active outside of school, I can kind of, um, yeah, instead of listening in class, I can just do other tasks that are more important to me right now. Because yeah, that's just the priority that I choose. Um, but yeah, still, it's pretty much the same, right? You do get distracted, but then again, it's also faster and more efficient. So you kind of have to weigh it up.
Yeah, that the goal to do things that are not academics inside the class, I'd love to hear more about. So, um, you know, is it because you said your priorities, you're excited about stuff you're doing outside of school, but what does that mean for how engaged you are with the class, and then how does that show up in terms of like how you're performing in school or like your social connections, if
Yeah.
you're engaged something different than everybody else around you, and I'm sure it's not just you, obviously it's probably everybody is doing something new different,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, tell me a little bit about how that impacts your experience of school.
Yeah. That's a really interesting question. And I'm thinking about it a lot. And I'm thinking about how strict I should be with myself and how I should change my behavior. So this year was the first year I've started using an iPad, and I definitely noticed a difference. Like, yes, I'm more distracted. I don't pay attention as much to class. And even when I do, I notice that I can't put everything into a context because I have only been listening for the last 5 minutes because before I've been again on my iPad. Um, so I noticed that I'm not as immersed anymore in the learning experience. Um, and obviously, I would say, like, for me, it's easy to build habits, and I could just say myself, like, "No, like, don't do it, don't use it." But again, for me, that especially this year, like, my motivation to be very active at school and get good grades has dramatically decreased just because I realized that school is not preparing me for the future, and my plans for the future are not getting a degree, like a university degree, or I don't see I don't see a very likely scenario where I do need good grades. Like, even if I have average grades, I would still get into university. That's just, in Germany, you don't necessarily need good grades for that. So I would say the reason why I'm allowing myself to get distracted is because I like choose to do that. I choose to not be as engaged in class anymore. That being said, I obviously still study for class and still try to from time to time be active in class. And then as far as grades are concerned, I also noticed that I'm I need to do more. It's like, I think from elementary school, like, even already there, I noticed that it's so important to pay attention in class because that's like, you do that and then you have the work is done already. And since I'm now not that active anymore, I noticed that I have to do more catch up work. Or like when a test comes, I have to prepare more and kind of think about it more deeply again, just because I didn't do that process in class. Um, but yeah, I would say for grades, it hasn't been that dramatic for me. Like, yes, obviously, if I would like put in more work for school, my grades would be better, but they're not like bad or anything. Um, but I wouldn't say that that's because I got distracted from the iPad. It's more about if I put in the work or not put in the work. So that I would say is less a matter of distraction.
Do you think that you would be do you think you would be putting in more time into like school work or like, actively engaging more in the classroom setting, if you didn't have the iPad?
I think I would be forced to
Yeah.
because I can't distract myself. Um, or I mean, I can still look. Yeah, that's probably what I would do. Like, I would just look outside the window, like draw something. Because, like, literally, in I think in 10th grade, if you look at to my like German book that I use for writing, during my German class, it's like full of drawings. So right, if I don't want to pay attention, I will find a way to not pay attention. But with the iPad, it's definitely easier to get distracted. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Um, Interesting. Okay, so tell me about what is more exciting to you. What are you doing outside of school? Tell me. I know we're going to talk a little bit about the Knowledge Society. Before we talk about that, is there anything else that you have going on that you think is a high priority for you, or is really motivating you to be engaged?
So I I have like a couple things going on, and it's not like one big project that I've been working on alongside. Um, I would say, just like hobbies like dancing and working out and yeah, reading and all that stuff definitely takes up time too. Um, and then I also have like I'm also in some clubs at school. Mm. I also want to get more into like content creation. So I've also been like writing articles in my newsletter, and all that. But yeah, that's probably more of TKS work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say most work that I do comes from TKS, and now I'm more getting into like content creation and personal, like creating a personal brand. So that might take up more time. But yeah, besides that, not really. Well, I like to go to like networking events. I go to a lot of like conferences and startup pitches and panel discussions and all of that. So that also takes up some time. But besides that, it's pretty much TCAS.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it. Tell me the process to get involved with TKS really quickly, and then walk everybody through the different steps that we were talking about earlier in terms of how TKS is
Yes.
structured.
Yes, definitely. So the way I got into TKS, well, obviously you have to apply, but before that, if I didn't do the exchange year, I would have never heard about TKS. So in Nebraska, I was in like the FBLA club, and there I heard about TKS through the newsletter, and I immediately knew that that's something I definitely want to do. And so I applied, and for the application, you have to submit a video and like kind of an essay on, and you can apply for virtual or for in person. So there are also like in person cohorts, mainly in Canada and the US, but in Europe, um, yeah, there unfortunately is no in person cohort, so it's all virtual for me. But that's also super cool because you're connected to a really global community. Like I meet students every single week from all over the world, like any country you can imagine. Um, so yeah, then you apply and then it starts in September and it goes 10 months. And there are actually a lot of different parts to TKS. So it's not just one thing. It's kind of like you could even call it like an entire lifestyle, basically. It's not just a program. It's really um yeah, it's kind of like a whole lifestyle community. And it's very diverse. But yeah, I would say the main thing is the focus. And the focus is it's kind of your passion project and it starts with a learn article. So you can choose any topic that you want, like really anything. And of course, a lot of people at the beginning, they don't even know what they want to do or focus in, like what their true passion is. So therefore, we have the so-called explore modules where we learn, especially about emerging technologies, but also other problems in the world. And that should kind of inspire us to think about these problems and get passionate about them and be like, hey, that's actually super important. I want to solve that problem. So when I talk to a lot of my TKS friends, um, that's how they discovered their focus. They heard through it through during session or in the explore module, and then get super excited about it. And I think that's amazing because it really, yeah, TKS really fosters this curiosity and channels that into doing projects. So then you start with learn article where you just like write a it should be in depth. It doesn't have to be like super technical, but still like a little bit deeper than just a surface level article. But yeah, then you just write about the topic, get to know it a little bit more, and then you have your replicate one, your replicate two. And this is kind of like a small project. It could take a day, but it can also take a month. And there you're essentially replicating something that has already been created. So there might be a tutorial out there that explains parts of it, and then you just do it yourself, and then write an article about it, write a video about it. So that's also how we learn about content creation. Um, and then once you have your replicants done, you can start with your create. So that's the end of the focus. And that's when you actually do something new, something that hasn't been produced before. And this could be a new technological like innovation or a new platform or a new hypothesis if you choose a more scientific direction. Um, and yeah, that's then again, you do like a video about it, an article about it, and then you can present it at the demo day at the end of the year. So that's kind of the focus process, and it's not fixed. Like it's very flexible, and if you start out in one field, you might end up in a completely different field. Um, but that's just yeah, that's also what I had to learn. You just really have to trust the process.
Um, awesome. Yeah. So I want to hear about your project, and then we'll come back to thinking about the connection between TKS and schooling. But tell us a little bit about what your learn paper was on, and why you chose the topic you chose.
Yeah, definitely. So my Learn article was about how AI can help make education more personalized through project-based learning. And there I imagined a platform that helps you with the project-based learning, or like the PBL process. And that was really interesting to me because I got to explore how AI works, especially how large language models work and um, yeah, I really got to explore it on a more technical level in depth. So that was super interesting to me. Because I really didn't expect that. And that was really fun. And then for oh yeah, what was your second question?
Oh, just like why you decided to choose that topic? Like what got you specifically interested in project-based
Um,
learning? Yeah.
yeah. Honestly, I can't even remember how I stumbled across PBL. But the moment I heard of it, I just got really excited because it felt really eye-opening. Because when you go through school, you mostly know passive lectures or kind of group work, which I'm not the biggest fan of. It's not the same as project-based learning. Um, so when I heard about project-based learning and explored how it worked, I was like, wow, like this actually teaches us important skills that are transferable to the actual world and also prepare us for the future. So that's why I like project-based learning. And then the reason why I combine it with AI is first because I'm really interested in that. Second, because in TKS there is quite a big focus on like technology. So I kind of felt that I should also go into the more technological route. Although again, it really can be anything within TKS. And then third, was just because yeah, I kind of the intersection. Like I knew that standardization is one of the biggest problems with education. So personalization is one way to improve education. And so I kind of tied all of these things together to use AI and personalization project based learning.
Very cool. Um, and then tell us a little bit about what your how that's developed and what you're working on now.
Yeah. So for my first replicant, the original idea was to create like a PBL generator, because that's what I wrote about in my article. But I didn't really like the idea because I thought like, after doing all the research for my article, I noticed that there already is so much out there. Like there already are so many PBL like project generators, and kind of lesson plans ish out there. So I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. And so I decided to create a chatbot using the Socratic method because when it comes to AI in education, a lot of people say like, "Oh my gosh, it's going to replace our thinking," and how are students going to be able to think critically and process information by themselves if they don't really learn it but just let AI do all the work. So then I kind of researched and I heard about the Socratic method and I was like, "Oh, what's that? That sounds interesting." And so that's basically instead of the chatbot giving you an answer immediately, it comes back with a question. And so you have to think about the question, answer it, and then it's kind of like a back and forth of the AI chatbot giving you questions. And I really like that format. So I created a chatbot, which again was very surprising to me because I did not expect to do something so technical. And I got to learn about like fine tuning and how that works and how to like choose a data set and model and go from there. So that was really interesting. And then after that, I was like, okay, no, that's enough of like coding. I don't want to do that anymore because it was annoying to some extent. And then I was like, okay, let's do a research review because obviously I have my own opinion on education, but I want to actually understand the status quo and put that in numbers because um yeah, a lot of the discussion in education is like very fuzzy and a lot of like buzzwords and everyone is saying like, oh, and you need to have like creativity and critical thinking. And right now this is not being trained in classroom. And I was like, yes, totally. But I wanted to get down to the facts. So that's why I was like, okay, let's do research. And it was okay, but it didn't feel like something cool. And then I also talked to the founder of TKS, and he said, like, nope, don't do research, start building. That's the way you actually build the skills. And also get the knowledge because reading something on paper and actually experiencing it yourself is very different. And so I was like, okay, I need to yeah, build something. And then after but yeah, I just started in January, so that was my second replicate. And I started out with a different idea that then turned into passion fruit. And what I did for my replicate essentially was vibe code a prototype. And the original idea was to create the full stack platform, but then I ran into some issues and I was like, okay, for my second replicate, let's just prototype it. That's enough. And that's kind of where I am at right now. Like, okay, no, I'm right now in my create, but I'm still with the idea of passion fruit. So passion fruit is a platform that encourages high school students to start building projects by connecting them with each other and by lowering the bar to actually starting project. Because and that also goes for me, like when we start something, it's really scary. And I think the scariest moment of doing something is actually starting, like the moment before you start. And I think a lot of people have this expectation like, oh, it has to be perfect and everyone has to like it. But I kind of want to remove that fear with passion fruit and really want to focus on the process instead of just the outcome. So you can even just start with an idea and be like, okay, I want to explore if I can create like a solar cell with uh, I don't know, some things that I have at home. And then you can just start that. Like it doesn't have to be finished. And so the idea of passion fruit is now evolving a little bit. And now I want to put even a bigger emphasis on the community. So passion fruit, the platform itself will showcase the project. So you can upload your project or again, just the idea to that platform. And you'll have this project gallery where as a student, you can also get inspired of what projects you can actually build because a lot of students they don't even know what a project could look like. So I want to kind of solve this inspiration gap, and also on the platform, I create awareness about what, like, not in a way of like criticizing it. I don't like, criticizing it a lot because that always creates a lot of pushback. I just do my own thing, build the future, and then kind of attract the people who are on the same wavelength, and then people can kind of get to know what the philosophy of passion fruit is about. And the main call to action would be to join the Discord server because they want to have this community of students who are curious and who are driven and who want to build something but might not have the right idea or the right people to support them. And that's the problem that I want to solve with passion fruit.
Very cool. It sounds like it also would be something that you would have found useful yourself, which is
Yes.
always a good project. Um,
Yes.
Now, let's tie all this together and tell me a little bit about first, how much of your schooling do you think helped you think about this project, right? So, if you had never been to, like, didn't do any high school, do you think you would have still gotten to a point where you would have been interested in these kinds of topics and been able to execute what you're executing right now? And you can take a second to think about it. I know that's a big question.
Mhm. So, do you mean like school in general from elementary school or just high school?
Let's say just high school. I won't push you to think that, hypothetically, but let's say high school.
Okay. Well, first of all, if I had never went to high school, I'd never do the exchange year, so I would have never heard about TKS. Um, so in your scenario, would TKS also be part of my experience, or would it just be
Yeah,
me
sorry. So
after
let
this?
me be more specific. Let's imagine that right after middle school, you went straight to TKS. Do you think you would make the same? Do you think you would gain the same benefits as you are right now?
No. Um, so I've thought about a similar thing because at TKS, so TKS is for like 13 to 17-year olds. I'm 18, but I was 17 when I applied. Um, and so I've met like 13-year olds who are working on really mind blowing stuff, like world changing stuff. And I'm like, wow, I could have not done that when I was 13. Um, So yeah, that's really impressive. And obviously, like I I kind of wish to have done TKS earlier just because I see how much it really unlocks your potential and how much opportunities it allows you to create for yourself. So yes, I would have liked it to have that experience earlier. But then again, I also like that I met TKS with the maturity level and the knowledge that I have right now. Because, so for example, when I was like 13, I really got into physics and science in general. So I probably would have done my focus in something that with like astrophysics or, yeah, no, probably something with like physics. Um, but now I'm actually happy that I got to go through like high school and experience the issues within the education system myself firsthand, and then that kind of um made me realize the issue, or like create become more aware of the education system, and then also work on that. um yeah, no, I it probably wouldn't be the same if I didn't go to high school and did TKS earlier.
Um, and then let's think about the opposite side of this. You talked a little bit about how, like sometimes in class you're bored. You used to doodle. Now maybe you're working on your TKS project because it's what you were passionate about. If you were to redesign schooling so that you got some of the same benefits, right? Like so that more people got some of the same benefits that you are from TKS, what would that look like? Do you think it would be scrapping some of the academic content? Do you think you'd be doing it differently? I'm kind of curious. I know you also talk about some project-based learning interests. So I'm curious how this all ties together in terms of what you would think a good school should do in the future.
Oh wow, that's a really big question, and I've thought about it a lot. And obviously, my perspective is changing throughout as I learn more and talk to more people. Um, like yes, there's some things that can be worked with what we have in the current education system, but overall, it needs a massive renewal, like massive, and it's not a it I'm not saying like, "Oh, just put AI into classrooms," because I think that's what a lot of people think that is what is going to happen, or what should be happening, like, "Oh, the future is here now, right? We need to use AI, so let's put AI into the classroom." And yes, that's part of it, but that's not enough. You can't just put AI into the classroom and be like, "Oh yeah, now it's innovative. Now we're future ready," but not with the current structures. So I think we really need to rethink the purpose of education at its core. Like, what is education about? And I would say, like, right now, education is built around the idea or like the needs during industrialization, which was obedient workers who could just do a task and like work according to a schedule and according to what authorities wanted for them. And of course, I don't want to compare the current education system to how it was like 200 years ago, but the foundation is still the same, pretty much, right? The structure can still be traced back to that idea and to how it was back then, and that creates massive issues. Mm. So I it's mm, so yeah, again, right now education is more about training us for the workforce, and it's very standardized. And obviously, in the future, education should also be about preparing us for the future, but not for making us like factory workers, basically. So I would say the purpose of education is really about bringing out the human part in us, and about helping us understand the world and ourselves, and helping us navigate within that world. Um, and also, it should be about, since the future is very uncertain and since things are changing so rapidly, we don't know what will be needed in the next, like in 5 years, let alone 20 years. So I think the thing that we should practice is dealing with uncertainty. And if there's something uncertain and then there's something new happen, then you have to incorporate that new information into your system and have to learn that. Um, so I think the purpose of education, or the main purpose of education, besides getting down some basic skills like reading and writing and calculating, should be learning how to learn. And I would say that's the idea we should build the education system around. And then also other skills like the, creativity and communication and collaboration. And obviously these are like very broad terms. But if you break it down, it really comes down to these things. But yeah, I want to obviously get more specific here. So I would prefer to start a little bit later in the day or make it flexible for students when they want to start, because some students like waking up early, some students are just kind of starting to get active around like 9 or 10. So school should be adaptable to that, and in general, it should be way more personalized. Like remove all of the not all of the standardization, but most of it. So the idea of having like rigid subjects is stupid because everything is interconnected. There's not just biology. It's like if you zoom in, it might be more like chemistry, or if you zoom in more, it's like physics. So and like even if you do something, it's always different disciplines. Um, and then also something like these rigid schedules, where you break everything down into like 45 minutes or an hour and a half sections. I think that's really hard for the child brain to process, or general for the human brain. So just kind of open up all these rigid structures, and also something like not only grades in the way of like test score, but also grades in a way of like your 11 and 12 and all of that. Um, I think that should also be removed. So and yeah, when you think about what education should look like, I think project-based learning is a pretty good way to go. Again, not everything should be a project. Not everyone likes doing projects. So, there might be some students who actually prefer just sitting in a classroom and listening to a lecture. And obviously most students do that right now, because when teachers say like, oh, you have to work on a project, it's like, oh, I have to actually work on something. So but I think if students get to know how fun it is to do a project and actually get to do the work that they enjoy and that they're curious about, then they would actually like doing projects. But again, it has to be a mix of different teaching methods. And then for the content, I would say yes, from at the beginning, it should be more standardized, like just to ensure that everyone is kind of on the same level. Again, the basic skills that I talked about at the beginning, but also some like common knowledge, so that it kind of builds the foundation, right? But I think starting from probably like eighth grade, something around that age, there should be much more diversity and much more personalization and much more choice given to students in what they want to learn. Because I think then they kind of start to develop their, yeah, kind of the direction that they want to go in. And again, that can change, but just allowing for that flexibility and also for that curiosity to actually be practiced and then turn into something. Um,
Um, I want to talk a little bit about what's next for you to end with, but before we do that, just really quickly, when you talk about allowing like younger students to start having some more flexibility and specializing, and when you think about your own, like the evolution of your own interests, do you think you would have missed that? Like you talked about how when you were younger, you were really into physics. Do you think that if you were allowed to just explore your, or like, a much more flexible system to explore that interest when you were younger, um, do you think you would have still had the flexibility later to learn other things? Like I imagine, um, for example, if you're spending, let's say like generously a fourth or third of your day on an interest of yours, that's still a lot of curriculum, the pedagogical time, honing in on a very particular field. And at that age, you might not have yet, like, you don't even know what's out there fully, right? So I'm curious about how you view your own journey through like different interests, and what you think specialization might have done or flexibility might have done to that. And it might be, I mean, you might say that that's good, and I want to hear that if that's the case.
yeah. So I mean, obviously there needs to be a balance between letting a student do what they're passionate about and still exposing them to what's even out there. But as long as you like while a student is working on their passion project, they should still learn about other things. Um, and then for my journey, um, I didn't I honestly don't know how that would have turned out. I mean, obviously, like um again, like when I was like 13 or something, I really enjoyed school because I was like, wow, I can be so lucky. Like I got to go to school every single day and learn about so many different topics. So that was really fun to me to learn about all these different things. Back then I didn't realize that it doesn't like what I learned doesn't really matter. So yeah, now looking back at that, it's kind of like unfortunate because I would have wanted to learn more, mm, yeah, more things that are actually useful for me and more interesting. Um, Maybe can you reword your question? I think that would make it easier for me to answer it in more detail.
I think actually you answered it. I was basically asking like if you had more flexibility when you were younger, do you think you would have like missed out on some of the interests you developed later, which I think is what you just addressed. The final piece of this is yeah, so like what I guess you have what 3 more months left of TKS, maybe 4 more
Yeah.
months. What are you looking forward to after that?
Well, so in TKS, there's a second year program, so I
Oh,
might apply to that. Um, and then I would I mean, I'm really excited about the idea of passion fruit, so I might just keep working on that. So for school, I'm in 12th grade right now, but in Germany, we have 13 grades in most states, so I still have like about a year to go to school. So I'll obviously keep going to school. Um, but yeah, I would probably just keep working on passion fruit and really double down on creating a community of students who are curious and active, and I think that has quite a big of an intersection with the students who realize the shortcomings within education and want to do something about it. So I think in the long run, I want to be an advocate for educational transformation, but also bring the like my generation together to discuss these things and create awareness about it and do something about it. So that's kind of the North Star, but I'm just trying to get into that with passion fruit to build this community, but also help other people build projects. Yeah, so it will probably mainly be that. I'm also allotted to philosophy, so I'll also start studying philosophy like a student program after and like in a month, and then I'll also go to Cambridge for 2 weeks. So I also want to explore this more. But yeah, overall, definitely keep learning more about um, all sorts of topics, but especially education, um, and keep talking to different people, whether that is in like K through 12 education or AI experts or policymakers. So I really want to put myself out there, put my vision out there, but also be in exchange with other people.
very cool. That sounds really exciting, and I'm excited to see how that goes and what you work on. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. It was nice to hear the perspective of somebody who's gotten a chance to explore schooling in two different contexts, but is also pursuing interests parallel to schooling. Laura reminds us that many students are not disengaged from learning itself. Rather, they're disengaged from systems that no longer feel connected to the lives they want to build. Her reflections on school, both in Germany and the United States, on the gap between formal education and the real world curiosity push us to ask what education would look like if it treated ownership and exploration as central rather than secondary. Keep listening this season as we continue to explore the interesting questions around technology, teaching, and what education really should be. And order my book for more on how to approach these concerns at ethicaledtech.org. Thanks for listening to Margin of Thought. If this episode gave you something to think about, subscribe, rate, and review us. Also, share it with someone who might be asking similar questions. You can find the show notes, transcripts, and my newsletter at priten.org. Until next time, keep making space for the questions that matter.